It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Ha! It's Feedback Friday. And, well, the debate happened on Tuesday night. I guess we said all there was to say about that on the Discord. That was kind of a fun night. Everyone was like, what? If you would like to be part of our Discord, the way you get there is either being cool and getting an invite from one of our ambassadors, or you can help support this channel. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care sessions for someone can use but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK, or if you want to sign up for a Leanna Care session, link in the description box below. I keep forgetting to mention the Redbubble store. There's like merchandise there. There's lots of different ways to support this channel. And if I sound sorry, there we go, winded today, it's because I'm getting over a cold. I was in Edmonton over the weekend. The patrons and some of the Discord people got the rundown on that one. That was wild. But I want to talk today. I normally don't do two-man talking feedback because Song isn't here to give her 2 cents. But I want to talk about this one thing because there are certain things that get into the bloodstream and they're wrong. You know, I once saw a bumper sticker that said common sense is neither, and I'm a big believer in that. And there were a bunch of people that are going, this bullshit, women were picky, women were picky, women are more picky, everybody knows women are more picky. I was like, this is counter to pretty much everything I've seen in anthropology, sociology, all that stuff. And so I went down the rabbit hole trying to find this thing. It's evolutionary psychology. And if there is one field of science that has fucked up more people's knowledge of people more than anything else, it's evopsych. Because psychology itself has a replication crisis. They do these studies, they don't follow them up. It's like, okay, there's this thing and everybody just accepts it to be true. But evolutionary psychology, meaning we are all just products of our lizard brains. That was facetious. Don't jump on me for that one. But you notice I have a pop filter on this, so pardon you can't see my face as well. I'm still working it out. I hate this shit. But evopsych not only has a replication problem because it's psychology, it also has a testability problem. How do you test evolution? What are you going to test, babies? Like, there is absolutely no way to know in an adult how much is nature and how much is nurture or social conditioning. It's the exact kind of flip side of the problem with the standard social science model, that it's all nurture, that people are just, blank slates and it's all social programming. The reality is that things are combinations of both. What every individual's starting point is in terms of core personality, that is real. And then our circumstances, what we're taught, how we, navigate the world, what our experiences are. And I've been holding off saying I may save it for Manly Monday, but people pontificating, men pontificating about women, including about things like women being too picky, might have something to do with you not getting picked, fellas. Like, if I came on this channel and just blamed men for everything, and said men are too picky, men are too opinionated, men don't listen, they're a bunch of blockheads, you wouldn't like me very much, would you? You wouldn't pick me. You'd go watch something else, or you'd say a bunch of nasty stuff to me. So when you're out there exuding this opinion, this is one of these catch-22 of, it's like I advise people if they think they're in a racist or sexist environment. If you truly are in a racist or sexist environment, you can't say this environment is racist or sexist. Why? Because you are at a disadvantage if you are the sex or race that is, discriminated against. You don't have the requisite power to say that. If you truly think women are more picky, why are you reducing your odds and women are just too picky, right? But if you don't want to be picked, why do you care, right? That's one point. Now that everybody's raging because, I said a true thing that disrupts the reality distortion field that they put up around themselves to blame everybody else instead of take responsibility for the stuff that they can control. Control what you can control is what I'm really big with, right? Remember, I talk a lot about saying we center the bad men in society instead of centering the good women in society. Well, if you're centering the people who reject you, in this case, women, you're going to attract more women who reject you. That's what you're going to see everywhere. If you center the people that accept you, and this goes for men and women alike, if you center the people that accept you, that is what you're going to be more aware of, and that is what you're going to attract. That is true also. But I looked into the science of this pickiness. The evolutionary psychology. Oh, it's mate selection and women must choose more carefully because it's like the minute they start going on about this shit, it's like this is a self-fulfilling prophecy. And what's weird about it now is that, women are just not nobody's dating anymore. It's ironic that, women are just too picky, but 44% of Gen Z men had no dating experience in high school. That's not just getting rejected all the time. That's not engaging, right? And that's okay to not engage, but you cannot boil down anything as complex as human psychology to one factor. If you do, that's a self-soothe, not a logical approach. But I did find an article that is held up, research that is held up. I'll put it in the description box of this video if you want to go over it more. But the article's from Smithsonian Magazine. The study is a click-through. Let me just double-check that. Yep, there it is. The name of the paper is Arbitrary Social Norms Influence Sex Differences in Romantic Selectivity. Yep, I repeat, arbitrary social norms influence sex differences in romantic selectivity. What does that mean in plain English? And there's a lot of citations on this paper. And usually if there's a lot of citations, it means it's accepted, right? What they did was arbitrary social norms influence sex differences and romantic selectivity means is that instead of it just being women are naturally more picky, these researchers did an experiment where they did a speed dating style thing. And they did it the traditional way, the arbitrary social norm of men doing the approaching, women remaining seated, and men circling around. They did it the normal way, meaning the arbitrary social norm way, the first time. And yes, they found that women were more picky. Then they switched it. They reversed the arbitrary social norm. So women had to do the approaching. Women had to rotate. Men stayed seated. And they found, and they mediated it with other factors, so they controlled the experiment. But they found that it wasn't about men and it wasn't about women. It was about who rotated and who stayed seated. And the rotators were always less picky. And this, obviously, it was a heterosexual event, right? The rotators were always less picky than the sitters. So it isn't about gender in this case. It's who's doing the asking and who's doing the answering. That makes much more sense in the wide body of work, because let me tell you, I'm somebody who does the asking. I get rejected plenty. And when I was younger, I used to deliberately go because back in my day, it was just like asking a guy to dance, for instance. Not, oh, do you want to hook up? We didn't have that. But even just one dance, a guy would say no and go laugh at me to his friends. So, it sounds like the empathy exercise here is, one, people have the right to say no, right? And a certain amount of empathy for the other side, that it is hard to be the one who approaches. But there's also a kind of put on the spot quality of being approached. And having empathy for the other side is really the best way through it. Getting into a fight of whether women have the right to be selective or not. I mean, let's face it, when guys are going on about getting all pissy that their, Star Wars Outlaws potential waifu isn't hot enough, how is that not being picky? There's no male equivalent, a male fan equivalent for hot rodent men. It's just, she's ugly. So if we look at because I didn't say mate selection in the original Two Women Talking video. I said women can find anyone attractive. Finding someone attractive does not mean you're going to agree to date them, because someone can be hot as shit and bad news, right? It's not the same thing. And equating the two things is a logic leap. So not only did people not respond to what I actually said, if we change the variable, if you look at online dating, sure, women are pickier than men, right? Just because there's a lot more men than women in online dating, and what does that say, right? But if you look at, say, the traditional concepts that Hollywood is based on, it's Homer and Marge, right? Schlubby guy, hot wife. if you looked at that, you'd say, well, men are more picky, right? And the truth is, none of it's true. These are truisms that we look at and we just take for granted because we see it replicated all the time. We never actually look at whether the variable we're assuming is the causal variable is just a red herring. And I mean, in Hollywood, it's very insecure narcissists with trophy women thinking every guy is like that. And it's the same thing, you know, these guys going, she's not hot, she's not hot, she's ugly, she's ugly, she's ugly. I mean, first of all, I guarantee you these guys are who's the hot guy now? I don't know, Timothy Chalamet. I don't fucking know. But those guys are not every man out there. They're not even the majority or even the average. They're a small portion of people who have enough time and energy in a day to complain about a digital character giving them an insufficient boner, right? Like, it's just, that's not scientific at all. And when we look at the science, it's much more nuanced and it's much more granular. And I think that's important. And of course, this isn't going to change anybody's mind, right? Because it's an emotional response and they don't want to think that there's something wrong with them, or they're deathly afraid that something is wrong with them. And so they just blame women, blame women, blame women, blame women. And this is what I'm going to talk about on Manly Monday, I guess, is, you know, how there's a phrase I use on It's Not Therapy: don't let problems that aren't your fault lead to mistakes that are. When you deflect your insecurities into blaming women for being too picky or whatever, that's taking a problem that's not your fault. You've been rejected a lot, and it leads to a mistake that is. And I have tried to compliment Manly Monday and Wellness Wednesday for a few weeks, and Wellness Wednesday this week was on conflict reduction. And I appreciate it. You know, people went back and forth in the comments because somebody said minimization and somebody said, no, it's not minimization, because that's, you know, got a negative connotation. It is reduction. And yeah, I love comments like that because there was a lot of, you are absolutely right, going back and forth in comments. And I do think that that is something we need to do more, not just respond when you agree, when you disagree, respond when you agree. Because then you're not the person that's just shitting on everything. And you have a choice in every encounter you have with someone. And it is a choice. You know, if you take "you made me" out of your inner vocabulary, you get very different results externally. So if you take responsibility for your own actions, it gets a lot better. So, you know, I was raised to believe that if you weren't model pretty and skinny, you'd be stuck with a guy who would cheat on you and probably beat you. And that messaging to women is why women are picky. Women are, if we want to call it picky, it has nothing to do with looks. It doesn't. There's absolutely no evidence that it is primarily about looks. We're finding that what women actually find attractive when they actually scan the brain is not consistent with self-reporting. But what women are screening for is he going to cheat and is he going to beat me? Or is he going to emotionally abuse me? That's it. And you know what? Maybe men should start screening for that more too. Like, guys, if that's picky, be picky, right? More on that on Manly Monday. I want to talk about the, like I said, Wellness Wednesday. Sorry, I'm a bit sick. I'm losing my train of thought. With the conflict reduction, you can come here and go, that's not true. That's not true. You can have the knee jerk. Or you can say, this isn't a perspective I've seen before. Some people did do this. You have a choice. You can start with totally disagree. Or you can start with, well, that's a perspective I haven't heard before. Can I hear more about this? You notice how one is way more charming than the other? Yeah. It's less combative. It invites a dialogue instead of starting off by judging someone. And when you start off with disagree, you are judging someone's opinion. And this baffles me. And I wonder if I'm just not, like, if I'm missing something about human behavior too. Because I'm like, who the hell cares about what I think? And I objectively know that some people do care what I think, but, my theory is people only care what I think when I agree with them. When I don't agree with them, a lot of people just want to yell at me and tell me I'm wrong. And I'm not here to be confirmation bias. But my opinion on things is not particularly, it's unique for sure, but it's not more important, or it's not given a higher status in my mind than anybody else's. Yeah, I'd like to be able to have my say in things, but I'd also like other people to have their say. And I mean, on the Discord this week, there was a conflict, and it was nobody's fault. It was just, a misunderstanding. But it came from the fact that when I first started the Discord, I wanted like 5 channels, and that's it. And the community wanted more and more and more and more. And now it's gotten too big. And the core of the disagreement is that information was in too many places and somebody didn't see one bit, and so there was a cross wire. And so, the user that had a fight with the moderators, and yes, he had a fight with the moderators and didn't get banned. Shocker! We don't do that. But we wanted to make sure that not just that he felt heard, but he was heard. That he truly believed that we were listening. And so we said, look, we can't turn back the clock. We can't start cutting down on some of these channels, merging some of these things, because that's a solvable problem, right? And he did feel heard. He felt, because I said, I don't want anybody to feel like they can't ask a question, and so me being open to other points of view, me not treating my opinion as somehow uniquely special compared to anybody else's opinion. To me, it's the best way to live, because you get less defensive. You get less reactive to identity threats, right? Like, okay, Somebody assumes a bunch of things about me because I'm a woman. And it's really weird how even people that have watched my content for a really long time and know what my experience is, they'll go, women, 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 knowing that that is not my experience. And ain't I a woman? Like, do I not count? This is why I find the whole binary gender thing, when we're talking about personality and preferences, it's in the way. Because we know that 25% of the population is not sex typical right off the top. We know this. That's a large minority, right? And typical doesn't mean better. Typical just means in the majority. And typical doesn't mean natural either, because there's a fuck ton of social conditioning, and only a minority are going to be able to break free of that programming, right? It makes sense. I have no idea why I ended up a free thinker. I think about that a lot, because again, I just don't think I'm terribly special. I'm weird, and I like that about myself. But when you get in this idea of specialness, I think I have worth, because I think every human being has worth. I have some things I'm good at. I have some things I'm not good at. But special? What does that even mean? You know, everybody's special. So special is decidedly not very special. And that's why we have to keep the focus on the individual, right? Like, if you're going to focus on all the people who rejected you, and that's what's going to define your life and your worldview and your communications, well, that's going to invite further rejection. Because listen to how you're speaking. Whereas if you focus on the fact that some people don't reject you, like, even though I'm disagreeing with the point of view, that's not the same as rejecting it. I considered it enough to look it up and got to the bottom of it. That's acceptance. So yes, that thing is out there because the red pillars just picked that up and fucking ran with it. And then there's just, we have a long tradition in the sciences of people going, well, it's just so. Because the problem with a lot of scientists is they are incredibly emotionally stunted. And so they intellectualize everything. And so, Lord, if you spend any time at science-driven universities, you realize how many scientists are very stupid humans, right? And you have choices in how you approach other people. You can choose to reject them outright and escalate a potential conflict, because nobody likes being rejected. Some people are better at it than others. I'm like, if somebody's like, you're totally wrong, it's like, okay, sure, you're a waste of my time, see ya, right? Like, anybody who thinks you're totally wrong starts a conversation doesn't understand that I don't give a shit about that opinion. Obviously, I don't think I'm totally wrong. So unless you can present some evidence instead of everything about this is wrong. Okay, God. Okay, King of the universe. Like, the fuck? That's not an argument. That's just arrogance. Or it's intense insecurity and reactivity. If somebody engages in a conversation, that's different. But no one in their right mind, like, tries to please someone who starts off rejecting them. Like, you're totally wrong. Okay, next. I'm not interested, right? And that's the thing, is that if you're like me and you're like, okay, didn't win that one, next one, right? That's my relationship with rejection. I don't like it. Some sting more than others. My whole thing is when people backstab. You know, it's not the rejection that's the problem, it's the revenge. The guy saying no when asking him out or to dance or whatever, that doesn't bother me. The fact that he went over to his friends and they all looked over and started laughing, that's what I remember. I'm like, yeah, of course. But does that guy determine my worth? Do the other guys, the other girls, other people who have rejected me determine my worth? No, they're lost. They're fucking lost. All of fucking games journalism rejected me. One of the board members of the IGDF called me a disgrace to the industry. Does this define me? No. Stop being defined by the people who reject you. Define yourself by the times you weren't rejected. And if you see any disagreement as rejection, and maybe I should do that next week, disagreement versus rejection. If you see any disagreement as rejection, that's not going to work. And there are a lot of people who think I'm rejecting their argument because I pull out data that shows, well, this contradicts what you're saying. If I were truly rejecting your argument, I wouldn't have even looked. I was open to the idea, hi Scout, that was right. That's acceptance. It's like, okay, let's test it. Nope. And seriously, women are more picky, women are more selective, all I got was evolutionary psychology stuff. And the minute I see Evo Psych, I'm like, oh, Evo Psych is just, I'm an Occam's razor person. The simpler solution, the better. Right, hi Scout. Individuals are complex, and the idea that we are just the products of evolution and we cannot change or we are not molded by society, that's just reductive and not backed up by any testable data. And if you repeat, Scout, you're being rude, cats. If you repeat what those assholes say, you're gonna sound like an asshole. But Scout saying it's time to go. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone using but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. He's rubbing up against the microphone. Thanks for watching and have a great weekend.